Hello everyone. In this video we are going to see how to test invoke Salesforce REST API Lambda function from AWS Console. The prerequisite for this is we have to install OpenSSL to generate certificate for the Salesforce Connected App. So make sure you install OpenSSL. Once the OpenSSL is installed, set the path to OpenSSL in your environment variable. Next, restart your PC so that you won't run into any issues while generating the certificate. First, run this command so that it will generate server.pass.key file. Next, run this command so that it will generate server.key file. This is very important file. Once this command is executed, you can delete this server.pass.key file because when we set up the connection, this server.key is very important. Here, instead of some password, you can enter some value. Here also the same value should be entered. So now server.pass.key file is generated and server.key file is also generated. Next, we have to create server.csr file. So run this command to generate server.csr file. Next, run this script or the command to generate the server.crt file. So this will generate the signed certificate. When you execute this command, it will ask your company name, location and everything. You can also use any values like test, example, sample also, no issues. So make sure you enter those values when you run this command. Okay, so now 4 steps are done. The file is generated. Now create a connected app in Salesforce and enable use digital signature and use the certificate you created at step number 4. So in the connected app, use the digital signature. Make sure you use the certificate you used and enable OAuth. Add these scopes and set this callback URL to this one. For this value, please see the video description. I will share the blog post from which you will be able to get this callback URL. So when you are comparing against your setup, make sure these values are set up properly. Okay, so now connected app is also created. And next, in AWS, go to Lambda functions, your contact center name hyphen invoke Salesforce SOQL. So Lambda functions, and this is my function, Lambda function. And we have to go to configuration and select the environment variable. So I am in configuration and these are all the environment variable. You have to update the auth endpoint and endpoint base here. This is my domain URL, infalliblescv.my.salesforce.com. So this is my domain URL. So I updated the auth endpoint. Next, for these 4 parameter and for this parameter, we have to go to AWS System Manager and then we have to select parameter store. So you have to go to AWS System Manager and from here you have to click the parameter store. So once you go to the parameter store, you will be able to see all these variables. Okay, so for the Salesforce REST API access token, leave it with the default value which was there, and for the Salesforce REST API audience, make sure it is login.salesforce.com if it is production, test.salesforce.com if it is sandbox. Next, for the consumer key, you have to get the consumer key from the Salesforce Connected App. So when you click this manage consumer detail, you will be able to get the consumer key. So you can use that consumer key. Next, in the Salesforce REST API auth private key, what you have to do is you have to open the server.key file which we created here, and then you have to copy the full content and then you have to place it. So for this alone I will show you, because this is very important. And make sure it also contains the beginning of it and also the end of it. So when you right click and edit your um, server.key file, you will get this content. So so you have to update it. And in the Salesforce REST API subject, you have to enter your username. If you hard code your username here, it will throw an error. You cannot hard code the value here. Only in these two places you can hard code. For this, you have to go to this AWS variable and then you have to update it. Okay, so with this payload, you can test the Lambda. So now a cert certificate was generated. Next, connected app in Salesforce was done, and AWS console settings are also done. Now we are going to test it. So you can get this payload from my video descriptions blog post, so that you can execute it. So I'm finding a case where contact phone is equal to this number and is closed is equal to false. So I created a simple case record which is tied to this contact, and this is the phone number. So if I execute that particular query, it will return this case ID. So now let's try to execute the Lambda function. So go to test. So this is my test. Okay, it got executed, succeeded, and I got this ID. So the SOQL was executed without any issues, and then it got the ID. So in order to test this Lambda function, first create a file using OpenSSL, create Salesforce Connected App using the um, certificate which we created, and the last step is set up the AWS environment variables. If you get success false or any other invalid session ID, make sure the environment variables are set up properly to resolve all the issues. I hope it was helpful. Thank you for watching.